So I've been building different buttons lately, and after building a button that looks like an actual keyboard button, I decided why not build a virtual version of my physical keyboard, the Keychron K2 Pro. But to make this an actual challenge, I'll limit myself to using only HTML and CSS for the design. If not, this video would just consist of me breaking up an image of the keyboard into HTML elements. Okay, to build a convincing key, we need a couple of things. We need to decide on a perspective and lighting, and for that, I'm going to reference my actual keyboard from the top down. To sell the illusion of depth, I'll create a base layer for each key, as well as the top. What really makes the top of the cap appear closer than the bottom is the two shadows on the left corners and highlights on the right corners. To accomplish this using just HTML and CSS, I am going to use gradients. Specifically, conic, this type of gradient. I found this site for building gradients and used it to visualize overlaying 4 somewhat transparent conic gradients on top of each other. And after some time adjusting the colors and tweaking the angles, it looks pretty good. Oh, and once I finish building the actual keyboard, I'll use a little JavaScript to animate it when users type. The tops of the keycaps are concave, meaning the light is on the left side and the shadow on the right. This can be addressed with a simple, easy to pronounce linear gradient. Since the top of the keycaps isn't perfectly square, I'll use a tricky border radius to give it a more elliptical shape. Since these black keycaps sparkle a bit more than the other colors, I'll add a tiny inset box shadow to reflect that gleam. And the key is done. I'll build the actual keyboard one row at a time, using different colored keys to match my keyboard, and fine-tuning the shadows, gradients, and angles for the different sized keys. With the keyboard itself done, I'll move on to animating it. And once I finish that, I'll show you how to change the perspective of the keyboard a bit. To properly animate the keys, I'll add an event listener that is called whenever a key is pressed. It will find the element with the same ID as the key that was pressed, and scale it down by 5%. It will then perform the inverse of this when the key goes back up. I'll also create a key map to handle cases where the key code doesn't match the key itself, as well as to handle all the shift variations of the keys, like capital letters and the symbols on the number keys. The last edge case I need to address is keys that appear multiple times, like the command key, or modifier keys like the shift key. Okay, the last thing to do is add a little perspective. There are a couple steps for this. Firstly, I need to add perspective to the container and then transform the keyboard. To make the keys look 3D again, I need to shift the top of the caps up and adjust the gradients. This takes forever, by the way, because I have to manually do it for each color and size of key. The last thing needed is to add a little depth to the frame, and it's done. Let me know how you would have done it in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Thanks.